Greetings, it's Adam with you, Rata Non Grata, and coming back to some Nintendo and doing the rival 64-bit system here instead of the Jaguar being the first 64-bit system. But it was announced today during the Nintendo Partner Showcase Direct that some Rareware games were coming to Nintendo Switch Online. And one of them caught my interest. Now, just so you know, I did not own a Nintendo 64 back in the day. It was actually out when I was on a big Jaguar kick. And so I was happily buying up all the Telegames and Songbird releases while the rest of the world was buying PlayStation and N64 games. But, I mean, all my friends had N64s. They didn't have a ton of games for them. Like, everybody had GoldenEye, Super Mario 64, of course, and Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. But other than that, I don't remember my friends having very many games for the N64. There was a cool one that one of my friends had that was by Konami, and it was like a sci-fi third-person action game where you would actually wrestle. It like wasn't a wrestling game, but it was that was the combat mechanic, and I wish I could remember what it was called. But anyways, the reason why this one interested me is not because my friends had it. In fact, none of them had this game. It's just I remember seeing this everywhere. Anytime there was N64 games for sale, it seemed like there was Blast Corps cartridges there. And even in more recent times when I've gone to a game store that sells retro games, it's pretty easy to find. It seems like it's a pretty common game to pick up, and so I figured, since it's available on Nintendo Switch Online and I have that, I might as well give it a shot and see what the heck it's all about. And so this is my first time playing it, and it's interesting. I mean, at least the tutorial essentially tells you everything that you need to do as long as you don't scroll too fast past it, but it does seem fairly intuitive and straightforward as far as got the arrows there to tell you where you should be going that I was kind of ignoring. I mean, the main objective is blow things up, break things down, but at least on this level you're supposed to destroy objects that would get in the way of the missile launcher. Catch what the missile launcher is for exactly. And I guess I also missed jumping into the car down near the train, which you could do and then use that to run into stuff perhaps. But it has some, I don't know, Iron Soldier vibes to it a little bit. Obviously very different games, and this is more just I'm sure if I had come across this game when I was a really young kid, I just would have loved it. just drive around blowing stuff up, breaking buildings, and and all that. But I guess that's where Iron Soldier comes to mind for me, because there's lots of wanton destruction that you can do in Iron Soldier that you don't necessarily have to blow up every building. You really just need to go after your objectives, but it's fun just to walk through a city and throw grenades or shoot rockets and just lay waste to everything you can find. And so yeah, this one has that kind of vibe there. But at least from what I played of this tutorial level and the next level, it's okay, but I could see where this one, I'll have to maybe push myself a little bit to want to play it more. I don't know what it is about it, but it didn't crazy about this. Wow, this is the best game ever. But I see the appeal and it's fun. But just one of the things that does bug me about this, and I did record some, I think it's, what is it, Jet Force Gemini or something? Just the controls. And I wish that the Nintendo Switch Online, when you would go into the Switch menu, would have kind of a map of what the N64 controls are supposed to be, because most of the times you just kind of just have to figure it out as you play. But I mean, I was never a big fan of the N64 controller. I get it, it was innovative and everything for the analog stick, but it's hard these days to play a 3D game with one analog stick as opposed to two. So when you're used to that on other modern games, it's a bit tough to go back in time, so to speak, for that. And this particular sequence here is one of those where it didn't make a whole lot of sense as to figuring out the camera and the movement. It took a little bit of practice, and it's still just kind of wonky as to how that part worked. But maybe I was missing something on the controls, I don't know. I'm sure with an original N64 controller it's probably a little bit easier than using a Switch controller. But when you're fighting the controls, that's always a recipe for frustration as opposed to fun. And so that's maybe where after this level, I was just kind of like, done for now. But I did notice that other levels seem to have different types of vehicles that you can use for your blast coring, whatever that would all be called here. But there's nothing that seems to be putting you in danger either, like no enemies or anything like that. Perhaps there are things like that later on, or maybe it's just like an old school arcade game where your only enemy is the timer. I'm not sure, but I also do find it funny that how because it was called the Nintendo 64 and it had 64-bit components, that this defines 64-bit graphics. And that's one thing that I hate about the whole argument of defining graphics by bits, is that, see, it doesn't mean really anything really, because you can have much better looking graphics than this on a 64-bit say graphics card and stand out from what this is exactly. But late 90s graphics would be a better, more descriptive term for it. But what do you think of Blast Core? Are there any other N64 games I should play? I can't recall if there's any Atari games. Probably not. I don't think that Hasbro got anything like Centipede on there or Pong. I know they did on the Dreamcast. I have a Dreamcast sitting around here, but I don't have any Atari games for it. But let me know, and we'll catch you on the next video.
You're just trying to impress me.